Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Any of you guys were here yesterday for Taraweeh? Yeah, so you guys noticed my voice is kind of gone or fading away. So, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala, which means, mashallah, you're going to do all the talking today? Okay. Jazakallah for coming out. A quick recap. Last Sunday, we started off with the process of tawbah and change, and that system reboot, system reset that sometimes we need. Ramadan's a great month to do it. And then we went on to talking about Fard Ain and the importance of it and different components to this. So inshallah today, without any further ado, we should jump right into the topic. But I think before we do that, let's talk about something on a lighter note. Sheikh, what's your opinion on Suhoor Fest?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam. It's good to be back. Suhoor Fest. So let's not talk about the actual brand or the people who put it up, but an event like that.
The concept,
right? The concept like that. Raise your hand if you grew up in Virginia. You grew up in Virginia. I grew up in Virginia, right? So growing up here, the best suhoor move you could make was IHOP. That was the creme de la creme. Oh my goodness, right? Let alone IHOP for 1 year, one halal or something. That was just that was a whole other thing. So I think what happens is COVID happens and everyone has a very lonely Ramadan. Personally, some of us had the best Ramadan ever, right? But most people had a very lonely Ramadan. So once we're outside of COVID, you start to see things like these larger gatherings at, what for Muslims are essentially odd hours of the night to be either not asleep or not in worship, right? So it's very uncommon for a Muslim, right, in our general ethos of things, to just be hanging out, right, at that late at night. Either we're asleep or either the good ones are waking up for tahajjud. So I think in spirit, for a part of our population, it's a good thing. There are some people, listen, the only connection they have to Islam is Ramadan. They fast. They don't pray. They don't give zakat. They don't care about Hajj. They don't care about in terms of the rulings of fiqh and dress and whatnot. And so for them to hang out with 5,000 other Muslims is a very good thing.
So it's like a cultural
right?
affiliation. You
Yeah, it's a great thing. It's oh my goodness, wow. Look how many Muslims care. And then,
you gotta hold it tight.
Like this. Yeah. And then let alone if they have a little qiyam or something in the middle of it, even better, right? So for those people, it's good. But if you're someone who is a bit more already serious about Ramadan, and you're trying to pray qiyam, and you're trying to, it's the month of purifying the heart, right? For that person to go spend 3-4 hours, kind of just eating food in a month in which we're supposed to abstain from food, probably not the best thing. With that being said, I'm not taking away from any business. MashaAllah, may Allah, I love Muslim businesses. Allah give barakah to all the Muslim businesses. I just think that does it fit the spirit of Ramadan? You know what? Someone told me something recently. They said the spirit of Ramadan is community.
Beautiful.
I disagree.
Okay.
I completely, absolutely, vehemently disagree. The spirit of Ramadan is the Quran, is worship, is Allah.
It's seclusion.
It's a renewal of faith. We happen, right? We happen to be in communities. The way it should be is that individually meet each other with that same spirit. But to say the spirit of Ramadan is community, that means you're now focused on people and you're not focused on Creator. That's a problem. So to sum it all up, for some people it's good, for some people it's not. In the middle, lower your gaze, do what you gotta do.
So you gotta do post-Tarawih moves then.
I mean, last night, this one kid came up to me, he goes, Ustad Umar, I don't think you realize, it's a cool thing now to go and pray Taraweeh with your friends, and then go and hang out somewhere. And again, on one hand, I'm like, great. On the other hand, I'm like, at what cost? If you're going to backbite, if you're going to curse, if you're going to listen to music, right? what was the point? But if you're someone who never goes to the masjid, then for you it's a good thing. Go to the masjid and then go hang out at
Mash-
XYZ coffee shop.
And mashallah, like, but mashallah, you opened this up really nicely. And this is like called Pathways to Religiosity, right? So you're going to be at different levels, every single person, right? And, we really got to look up to scaling ourselves closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially in the month of Ramadan. So I think you answered this beautifully. It will not fit everyone where we can give a blanket ruling, yes or no, right? It's not like black and white in this situation. And if that's an attraction for people who have never been practicing to come and belong, feel like they are Muslims, mashallah, great. But, I think the crowd that is already trying to put that effort in improving themselves and whatnot, they really have to evaluate where they stand in that notion, mashallah. So you mentioned here the spirit of Ramadan is not community, so you disagreed with the person who said it's the spirit of Ramadan is community.
I don't like this modern notion
Yeah.
of the last 5 years
So-
that people say
Mhm.
Ramadan is all about community. I don't
Okay.
like that.
So
That's foreign.
So just got a question. So in the month of Ramadan, we know Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to review with Jibreel alayhi salam.
Yeah.
And today's topic is your journey towards Quran al-Kareem. I heard somewhere that not a lot of revelation happened in the month of Ramadan because then Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was obligated to do balagh of it. Ya ya Rasul balligh. But in that whole month, he would take it and specially, renew himself with Quran al-Kareem. And to what you are speaking is like that moment of where you find your own self linked with Quran and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you know of anything like that where, in terms of revelation being revealed in Ramadan versus outside Ramadan? Because, sorry, let me add.
Yeah,
one more- sorry. Because we know from the tradition of scholars, they would stop their durus in Ramadan, right? Because they would be engaged in Quranic recitation and with Quran themselves. So is that tradition going back to that? Wallahu alam, maybe?
Yeah. So Ramadan, as seen in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the life of the companions, the life of the tabi'een, the life of the salaf, the life of the ulama, the life of the righteous and the awliya, it's all one theme, and that theme is detox. And so that doesn't just include things that are disliked. That doesn't just mean like, oh, I leave music or I leave movies or I leave things that waste my time. No, that means even the study of fiqh will be paused. The study of hadith commentary, paused. The study of theology, paused. And all you're focusing on is Allah and His book. And anything that connects you to Allah and His book, which obviously is the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this point that you made here, which is really nice, I'm going to repeat that maybe in some other words, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not receive too much revelation in Ramadan, because if he did, he would have to go to the people and explain it to them. But Ramadan is a time where you kind of exclude yourself, or you seclude yourself rather, focus on your own heart, focus on your own relationship, and then after Ramadan is over, right, he would go to the people. So just to clarify my point, because is this recorded?
Yeah.
Oh
it's
boy.
recorded.
Okay, recording. Just to make this very clear, I'm not saying Ramadan is not a time of for community. I'm saying the purpose of Ramadan is not community. That's the main. We need to get our language right. If we don't get our language right,
That's correct.
right, we're mess up our thought process. Right? The purpose of Ramadan is Allah, Quran, Tawbah, renewal, returning to Allah. Right? The benefit of Ramadan is community. There's no doubt about that.
Great.
Right.
No, mashallah, that's good. So through Quran, people come together. Through Tawbah, through seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's where hearts unite and people, community come together, whether that's Taraweeh or, like they are linked with Quran or something which is centered around getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, since the topic is Quranic, your journey towards Quran al-Kareem, and, we have to highlight the practices of our Salaf. Imam Shafi'i, the famous, narration of finishing 60 khatams, 2 Qur'ans per day. Imam Bukhari, one khatam per day. And, there are countless others who have, who we have reports of their recitation, especially in the month of Ramadan, of how they were engaged with it. Now, Sheikh, for a lot of people, that seems very unrealistic. How do we explain that? No, listen.
He got the mic on me.
No, the mic's fine.
You're, you're the Hafiz, you're the Quran guy. Don't ask me.
Don't worry, you're doing the
Bismillah.
talking today.
No, this is a really important discussion. This is a really important discussion because of guilt is a main
Yeah.
thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Ramadan comes into play, and there was a time that most Muslims in Northern Virginia, when Ramadan would come, it was like, okay, I got to read my juz.
Mhm.
I think that time is over now. I'll be honest, at least from what my experience with the general population. People are just trying to get connected to the Quran somehow. But Bismillah, I think the best advice on the topic of how much Quran should I read daily, not outside of Ramadan, is Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali says you need to read enough Quran daily to fulfill two things. Number one, the right of the Quran, which is that you open it on a daily basis and have a relationship with it. So basically consistency. And the second is you need to read as much before you get, and may Allah forgive us for even saying this, before you get bored of it or before you get tired of it. No matter how good one dessert is, if you eat it multiple times back to back to back, you're going to say enough is enough, right? And so the reality, we're not having bad adab with the Quran when we say this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us so many different forms of worship because, as Ibn Ata'illah says, because He knows that if there was just one form of worship, we would take it for granted or we would get bored with it. Right? So for some people, they can read outside of... Right here? For some people, they can read outside of Ramadan one page, and then by the time they get to the second page, it's already taken them 10 minutes. They're like out of it. They're checking their phone, right? For some people 2, for some people 4, for some people 6, for some people 8. So you need to figure that out. What is an amount of Quran that you can have consistency with and that you won't get bored from, and you need to keep it. Okay, now Ramadan comes. What do? Double it. That's it.
So
That's it.
So, the common khutbah lines in a lot of places is, make sure you finish one khatam in the month of Ramadan. You read one juz per day.
I know where they get that from.
So, and yeah, that right of Quran, finishing this complete cycle twice in a year, one in Ramadan and one outside Ramadan. So you think we are past that stage?
No, I don't think we're past it. So Imam Abu Hanifa said that the one who does not finish the Quran twice a year has not fulfilled the right of the Quran, meaning they would be counted as someone who made hijrah away from the Quran. May Allah protect us and forgive us. So most of the Muslim community, at least in the subcontinent, they said, oh, let's do one khatam in Ramadan,
Yeah.
right? To fulfill that purpose. I think it's a great thing. It's something I still aim to do every single year. I think everyone should do it. I think everyone should aim for more. But what I'm talking about is we should have a bare minimum for ourselves. The bare minimum for ourselves is whatever my daily Quran is, I double it in Ramadan. Ideally, I'm doing a juz. But at bare minimum, I'm doing 2 pages outside Ramadan, so 4 pages in Ramadan. 3 pages outside Ramadan, so 6 pages in Ramadan. Now the question is, what if someone's like, I don't have a daily Quran outside Ramadan? You better spend Ramadan figuring out how to have a daily Quran outside Ramadan. If we don't have daily Quran outside Ramadan, we are at risk. They say like, at risk for serious side effects.
Yeah.
We are at risk for serious side effects. Serious side effects.
Okay, so just pressing you on this topic. Are we lowering the standard then? Like, shouldn't that be the standard of juz per day, like as been said by so many predecessors before us? So, like, for example, you guys know Quran was revealed, right? And this division into juz didn't happen. There's the whole history of this division of juz. Now, it's been centuries where this division of juz has been going on, and then there are some people who finish the Quran in 7 days, and like then like for example, forgetting, I don't think it's Imam Ghazali said, there's a recitation of barakah that I do 10 juz a day, which is without reflection, without thing, and we'll come to that point. So what's like the standard that for example, I want to connect back with Quran, I want to set myself a goal. If we were to be talking about, okay, the average should be this. There's nothing wrong being below average, right? But are we coddling too much to make people feel good? It's important, right? One page, every word is important of Quran, right? As long as they're doing something of Quran. But if I want to become more serious in my religiosity, right? What should be the thing that should be coming out from the leaders and the standard that should be established?
So we're being totally honest, right?
Yeah.
You said, are we lowering the standard? Brother, it's a bit more problematic than that. Most American Muslims don't know how to recite the Quran. This is a reality that many people don't want to come to terms with. This is a reality that shaitan has convinced people. No, you do know. Alhamdu lillahi rabbil. I do know how to read the Quran, right? And by the way, I'm not making fun of those people. If you're someone who reads like that, but you're trying, you are way more rewarded than many of us, right? But there are some people, like have you ever been to a gathering? Any Afghans here? Last time there was like 4. You're Afghan? Bro, have you ever seen like Afghans recite Quran sometimes? They're sitting there, okay? They open the Mus'haf, and then this is them. What are you doing? I'm reciting Quran. Reciting in the Arabic language means you can hear the words. How do you know if you can recite if this is what you're doing? So it's not that we're lowering the standard. It's that our community has not emphasized the recitation of Quran for adults, teenagers, right? Enough. They've done it for young children. So many of us here when we're young children, we get sent to the Quran school, right? We try it out for a bit. We have some fun. And then the second we get older, our parents only worry about our grades. Yeah. They forget about Quran. And then we're 23 years old. We don't know how to read Quran. We're too embarrassed. How can I let people know I don't know how to read Quran, right? Because of that, we're at a place now where we have to start saying, maybe a juz is too much. Okay, read 15 pages. Okay, read 10 pages, right? So if you're here right now and you're listening to this conversation and you can handle a juz, then my friend, you do a juz. But if you're someone who said, I can't handle a juz, I know I can't handle a juz, then you do half a juz. I can't handle half, then you do a fourth. Me and him, we have to speak to everyone at all capacities. But you have to know which capacity you're at. Right? You can't think, oh man, Ustad Omar just said I can read only a quarter of a juz. Oh yeah. No, if you know and Allah knows that you can read a juz, right? Then you're choosing to take on something easy and you'll get less reward. Right? So I think that's the gist of it. But my sincere advice to anyone here listening, going to listen, our friendly camera, is that please, no matter how old you are, find the teacher, learn to recite the book of Allah. You know what I'm really scared of these days? People speak in the name of the religion. Yeah. The extremist ones, the goofy Sufi ones, the ones who have different color clothing, the ones who say you can't wear different color clothing, right? And no one's connected to the Quran. Right?
Their Quranic recitation is, I was like, subhanAllah, this famous preacher on internet, those trolls who are, canceling everyone out. And there was a clip that was sent about his Quranic recitation. And I was like, subhanAllah, people listen to this. Because that was the standard of of how traditionally people were, students were taught. First fix your Quran and then come and, tadarrujan, study what's above there. And they are going on to refutations after refutations without learning that very basic of it, where even salah is in jeopardy.
So the Prophet ﷺ said, everyone finish the hadith for me. خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ We got one or two people. خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you are those who learn and teach the Quran. We all know this hadith. And you always hear this and mashallah, right? We're ready for it? What does it say about a community who the least respected people in their community are the Quran teachers? The least paid people in their community are the Quran teachers. The least warmly welcomed people in their community are the Quran teachers. The most overworked people in their community are the Quran teachers. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are those who learn and teach the Quran. What does it say about us? MashaAllah, buildings on buildings on buildings, right? So many masajid. And then wow, look at our community. Ramadan is about community. How do we treat the Hufaz? Right? Like there's the issue of can you pay the, and I'm speaking to someone who's leading Taraweeh right now, so I won't, you're not in this conversation. But can you pay the Imam to pay Taraweeh? No. Why should we pay him? He's a Hafid. He should do it for Allah. You step in his schedule. You see what it takes to truly read a juz, no matter how good a Hafid you are. Right? And then do it for one Ramadan, and next Ramadan be like, pay him. You should give him a house. Like it's hard. No, he should do it for the sake of Allah. What do you think he's doing? Of course he's doing it for the sake of Allah. Right? But if the community treats the people of the Quran like this, then why are we surprised when bad things happen? I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking too real right now. It's this daylight savings thing.
No, that's fine. Like,
but I don't like to sugarcoat it.
No, we gotta speak
right?
real.
I can tell you nice fun stuff like, لا يكون مريد حتى يجد في القرآن كل ما يريد, right? One of the Salaf said, no one is a true seeker of knowledge until everything they seek they find in the Quran. That's the relationship we should have with the Quran, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has a special people. Inna lillahi ta'ala ahlun, right? Wa ahlul Qur'ani ahlullah wa khasatu. The people of the Quran are the special people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His chosen ones. May Allah make us among them.
Ameen.
Right? But if we're going to be real for a second, right? Who's actually learning Quran? Like who's actually spending time with this book? Who's respecting it? And then on top of that, this is the last thing, and then you can take it away, right? That's about recitation of Quran. Who's left anymore that actually wants to learn tafsir? Not fun tafsir. Fun tafsir is like,
oh my God.
Wow. Wadduha can be recited. Wadduhay. Allahu Akbar. Wow, the Quran mentions Musa alayhi salam more than Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Wow. Right? I'm not belittling those people. That's very good knowledge, mashallah. Right? But like, you know this as well. It is fard kifaya. It is a communal obligation to have in every single community someone, at least one person, who can explain to you the book of God, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who in this community is going to take it up? Right? Alhamdulillah, we have some people, fine. But like, who's actually interested in it? Because what do you need for that, Sami? What do you need for that? What do you need to understand tafsir? There you go.
There we go.
Right? You need Arabic. Who's learning Arabic? Who's going to give the time? Who's going to put the time? So I say all these things because Ramadan is the month where, okay, you want to go to Suhoor fast? Fine. You want to go to Souk? Fine. Allah increase, Mubarak, and all those things. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm getting to a point. What I'm saying is, fine. But this is a month where you sit down with yourself and you say, where am I and the Quran? Where am I and tafsir? Where am I in relationship with the Quran? Where am my relationship with Allah? I don't sugarcoat it. I don't fake it. And I don't care how bad it is and how depressed it makes me. I face myself. And I ask Allah to make me better. And I take the steps to make it better.
All right, Sheikh. So the crowd here right now, all right, inshallah, people who are watching, inshallah, people who are watching it. So the crowd who is here right now, is it an unrealistic goal to set the standard that we are talking about, like maybe in a next Ramadan, right, 2026, to get to a stage of reciting a juz? How long would it take realistically? If for example, like I'm on Qaida, I got to start from the beginning. What I learned the whole way was wrong. I'm going to start from Qaida right now, right? how long will it take me realistically if I were to spend maybe 2 days a week properly in a class type setting, and I do my homework? How long will it take me to get to that level where I can become a proficient reciter of Quran in a way that it does not take me 2 hours to read one juz?
Bismillah. Let's do some pre-iftar math here. How many pages in one juz? 20. Nice. Okay. Average Quran reader takes how long to recite a page? Okay, let me make it easier. How long does it take to recite a whole juz on average? Whole juz. 20, 30? 30 to 40 minutes. Okay, if it's 30 to 40 minutes, what's the average it takes to recite one page? Yeah. But the reality is, for most people, most Muslims, right? This is based on various polls, so the data might not be the most authentic. But most Muslims, when they actually recite it, it takes them 4 to 5 minutes to recite a page. Right? So now the question is, where can I start from to get to 4 minutes a page? And then how do I get to 3 minutes a page? And then how do I get to 2 minutes a page? Right? The goal for every Muslim and the Quran, the highest goal should be 2 minutes a page. Anything above that, and now you want to specialize, you want to do hifz, all those kind of things, right? But for every general Muslim, we all should get the 2 minutes. Let me tell you all something. True or false? Majority of Muslims. Wait, how do I put this question here? Give me a second. Well, I won't even make it a question. Many Muslims were illiterate. Morocco, the Ottoman Empire, Afghanistan, subcontinent, all these places, the majority were illiterate. They could not afford to learn to read and write. It is a luxury. To this day, right now, right, something like 48% people have access to high school. Only 48%. We should be very, very grateful, let alone above that. So, with that being said, how would they learn to read the Quran? They were at the masjid listening. Their teacher would recite one page, then they would recite that page. Then the teacher would recite one page, then they would recite that page. They grew up in a culture of the Quran. Masjid for them equaled Quran. Masjid for us equals community. Masjid for people before us equaled Quran. And so they had Quran circles, halaqat al-Quran. And so I remember I asked one of my shaykh once, how did you learn to recite the Quran? Did you use Nurani Qaida? Or did you learn this thing or this method?
Siman.
He was like, huh?
Siman, right?
He's like, I went to the masjid.
Yeah.
I went to the masjid, that's it. And I sat in the halaqah. And I sat every day between Maghrib and Isha. You want to hear a story? Story or no story?
Yeah.
It's a pretty hard story though, so just buckle up. So in the city of in South Yemen, in one of the cities, entire city between Maghrib and Isha shuts off. Imagine there's like a switch. It shuts off and it's just Quran. Tahajjud and Maghrib and Isha. These are the two times. It's Quran. You hear Quran from the rooftops. So there was a sheikh who had a store, and his store was stolen from. And so they couldn't find who stole the money. Then the next day, between Maghrib and Isha, the sheikh is sitting in the masjid reading his Quran, and his son comes to him and says, Baba, I found the thief who took our money. And the sheikh looks at him and goes, do you know what time it is? And he said, yeah, Baba, I know what time it is, but I found the money. He said, what time is it? He said, Maghrib. He said, you talked to me about something worldly between Maghrib and Isha? The kid realized. He said, Khalas. For this, you need to be punished. He banished him from some period of time outside the house. Never make this mistake in your life again. That's the commitment to the Quran. So, on a macro level, we as community builders, as masjid board members, as people who run institutions, need to serve the community through the Quran like this. Yeah. But as individuals, right, if you cannot recite the letters, you don't need to know detailed rules, right? Is it wala dallin, dallin? Is it qul ya ayyuhal kafirun, qul ya ayyuhal kafirun, qul ya ayyuhal kafirun? Right? The length of a mad, you don't need to learn that in the beginning. In the beginning, what do you need to learn? A, ha, hu, right? Those, the makharij, that's it. Learn the letters and learn how to connect them. Once you learn how to connect them, learn how to string them in longer ways, and then you can recite a whole verse. Once you do that, right, that'll probably take you, if you do it twice a week, that'll take you at most 6 months.
Yep.
Right? At most 6 months. Now you're in the mushaf. Once you're in the mushaf, you're at that 4 or 5 minute mark. Right? And then slowly from there, if you read, you will naturally get to the 2 minute mark. If you don't read, you will stay at the 5 minute mark. You might even get to the 7 minute mark. Because if you don't use your skills, you get rusty. It's as simple as that. And the one who is sincere, Allah makes it easy for them.
So mashallah, for the way you broke it down scientifically, we have it as a passing grade for the kids in our school. They got to recite a page of Quran in under 3 minutes. Because like realistically, if they can do it under 3 minutes, that means in an hour they can do it just. To be honest, like if you, in Ramadan, stretch yourself an hour, like 50-minute mark to an hour, you do it just, you can feel good about yourself and you feel a sense of accomplishment. But anything over an hour, if it's taking an hour and a half, then it's unrealistic to think that you can do it for 30 days straight. Illa mashallah.
So finishing up the point, yeah.
Yeah.
If you are at the 5 minute, 4 minute mark,
It's
it's very hard to recite a juz. Don't feel bad, read what you can. Right? You can only really recite a juz once you get to the 2 minute mark.
Okay, inshallah, like whatever levels you're at, there's always something that we can improve. Myself included, right? Yourself included. There is always a level above Quran. Quran is never gonna, stop. We're never gonna stop our journey with Quran al-Kareem, ever, right? No matter where we get in our lives, right? So set that standard for yourself and that average, and then work towards that, and that is the message. And that is not discouraging anyone here who may be able to recite a page, less than a page, if they're doing consistently. But this whole thing is called religiosity, pathways to religiosity. Keep on improving, keep on doing it, and there are results, and there is that end goal that you can get to. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, right? A lot of people get discouraged in the first, second, third week of classes, right? They drop out. Tanveer Institute, right? So the first, second, third week, right? That's when you try it. You're motivated, and then like, oh my God, it's getting too hard. But if you keep at it, there's always hope. So Sheikh, I know we are towards the end of the time. We talked a lot about recitation, right? Now the common question that comes is recitation with understanding, recitation without understanding. Because recitation is one aspect of your linkage with Quran al-Kareem, and the other is of course the understanding part of it too. Now, subhanallah, a common practice that I have observed, right? Whenever Ramadan will come, if you're like, what? I want to pick up an English tafsir and read that. I want to pick up study Quran, go through it. I'm not going into the debate of it. So talk about the recitation with reflection versus recitation without reflection, and the point which Imam Ghazali was making about a recitation for barakah, and a recitation of pondering, and a recitation where you're completely lost in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No. I have a funny idea, actually, before I do that. What do you guys think? There's a Quran class, okay, for kids, but their parents have to join. Tuition's free. That's one of my ideas. Bismillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I think that until you get comfortable with the Quran, it's going to be hard to benefit from it, right? I am comfortable with my iPhone. I know how to use it. I know what it's telling me. I know the things that we have a relationship here, right? If you're not comfortable with the Quran, it's going to be very hard for you to take benefit. You will benefit, but it's going to be hard for you. Now, what am I getting at? If you cannot recite the Quran, and you think, I need to understand the Quran, that's a false dichotomy. It's not good logic. Because you can't recite it, it always feels strange to you. So you're trying to bypass the recitation and go to the understanding. Let me explain something to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Iqra, which means recite. He didn't say ifham. We should use our minds. We should study the Quran. But don't forget, Allah said recite. We've been belittling this for too long, in especially Northern Virginia. For too long. We belittle this, and it's like, oh, I need to understand. Now, let me make one distinction. Reciting the Quran is called tilawa. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned multiple aspects of reward for the one who recites yatlu al-Quran. And he said, ﷺ, I was commanded to believe in Allah, I was commanded to be of the Muslims and to recite the Quran. Now, when you read a translation, is it considered reciting the Quran? What's it considered then? If it's not considered reciting Quran, what's it considered? Huh? No, it's considered talabul ilm. It's considered seeking knowledge. Still a very good act of worship, but not recitation of Quran. It's like reading a fiqh book. It's like reading a hadith book, right? It's considered seeking knowledge. And the Quran is the best knowledge, right? But it's not considered tilawa. So, Imam al-Ghazali and others who followed him, they talk about you need to have a portion of your day for just tilawa, reciting Quran, no reflection. And then you should have a small portion for understanding. And that's what we call tafsir. And you should have another small portion for reflection. And that's called tadabbur. So tilawa, tafsir, and tadabbur. For the general Muslim, my recommendation, 1 week. In a week, you better make sure that week had tilawa in it, and that's the majority portion. And that week had tafsir in it, and that week had tadabbur in it. And you should have a little chart, and you check that chart off. Tafsir, tilawa, tafsir, and tadabbur.
Beautiful. MashaAllah, beautifully put. You know these three levels, tilawa, tafsir, and tadabbur. I think you just like, sometimes, subhanAllah, like, you get words in which you summarize so much. I had all these other questions posed, but after what you have mentioned, the way you have said tilawa, tafsir, and tadabbur, I think it just summarizes everything related to Quranic journey that you gotta know. So inshallah, if you're sitting here today thinking about, okay, to be honest, Ramadan's great, but look post-Ramadan as well. Where you want to head towards and how you want to keep on climbing up. Sheikh, just do this final reflection on this point of this gateway of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Quran al-Kareem. And how serious it is that, the quickest path to Allah is through Quran.
You want to hear another story? So does anyone, raise your hand if you've heard of Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi. He was a Hanafi mufti. He was a Hanafi.
Okay.
And
anyone read Mathnawi here?
The Mathnawi is hard to read. Oh, mashallah.
You have? MashaAllah.
So maybe one day after Ramadan we have a class about Maulana Rumi. So we're not going to get into him now. Anyways, he had a sheikh. He had multiple teachers. He had two main ones that stick out in his biography. And one of them is lesser known. His name was Sheikh Sadruddin al-Kunawi, meaning Sadruddin of Konya. So, one day, Sheikh Sadruddin, his students came to him and they said, Sheikh, we just went to a masjid down the road and there was a group of Muslims gathered doing dhikr, Allah, Allah, Allah. And the Sheikh said, okay. And he said, so we sat with them. But then we started to hear their discourse. And their discourse was not about the Quran. And through the students, they started to basically say, yeah, our sheikh doesn't believe that we need to read the Quran. We don't need to recite the Quran. We just do dhikr, Allah, Allah, Allah all day. So they went back to Sheikh Sadruddin. And they said, Sheikh, this is a big fitna. Can you, as a sheikh, go talk to their sheikh? And he said, absolutely. I don't know about this. So he goes and he meets with the Shaykh. And he says, I heard that you tell your students not to read the Quran. And his reply was, absolutely. Why should me and my students read a book that talks about pharaohs come and gone? What do I have to do with pharaohs? And Shaykh Sadruddin gets so upset. Does he slap him? No. Does he strike him? No. He strikes him with the pen. He goes and writes a book, and it's called In Defense of the Quran. Right? And he talks about why the general Muslim who doesn't need to know Arabic needs to recite the Quran. And I intended to translate this book for a while, but I haven't got around to it. And so one of the main reasons is this false sheikh, right, who sits there doing Allah, 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 doesn't want to read the speech of Allah. The greatest opening, the greatest beginning that anyone can have in their connection to Allah is not even Tawbah, it's Quran. And they say, if we're talking on a language of spirituality for a second, they say that the one who begins their journey to Allah, they get their their opening, through the Quran, that the likelihood of that person slipping up is very less compared to everyone else. It's more of a permanence, because they started with the speech of Allah. There's nothing better than the speech of Allah, and we're going to emphasize this to the day that we die. We're never going to de-elevate the Quran. We're always going to elevate the Quran. I don't care how, but it's in the Arabic language. Yeah, it's لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا الْقُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا. Right? What you going to do about it? That's Allah's decision. So if you believe in Allah, and you believe in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? The next step is the Quran, and then followed by that is connecting to the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam al-Junayd, he was asked about tasawwuf, purification of the heart, because people like to say things about tazkiyah and tasawwuf and purification of the heart, and he said, listen, our understanding of purification of the heart, Islamic spirituality, is that it's confined by the Quran and the Sunnah. You step out of line by one inch, you're no longer partaking in this same subject here. So may Allah make our beginnings the Quran, our middles the Quran, our ends the Quran, and the last thing we'll say is may Allah bless and make us like the walking Quran, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the one whose character was the Quran.
So inshallah we're going to take 3 questions, hopefully before we break iftar. Yeah, 3, just 3. Anyone? Yes.
So this is the 4th T. Tilawa, tafsir, tadabbur, tahfidh. Right? Tahfidh is completely optional, with the exception of Surah Fatiha and 3 short verses or 1 long verse, right? Because that's what you need for prayer. Most people in Muslim history were not huffaz of the Quran. Most people in Muslim history were not even huffaz of majority of the Quran, right? However, I will say this. If you have checked the box of tilawah and you're at the 2-minute mark, and you have a weekly portion of basic tafsir and tadabbur, the door is open for you. For some people, they're going to use that extra time and say, I want to study the details of tahara and salah more. For some people, they're going to say, I want to study the details of certain ahadith more. I want to study the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari. And for some people, they're going to memorize. If you want to become a scholar, you have to memorize a portion.
Sheikh, I'm just going to add one thing to your point about tahfidh. I would put this in 1B. Tilawa, tahfiz. Because ultimately tahfiz is supposed to assist you with tilawa. The huffaz are becoming huffaz to recite Quran. And if someone's doing tahfiz for another intention, like where they're not going to be using that hifz in their tilawa, then, like what the saying is, a hafidhul Quran who's not reciting Quran is a bag of fragrance, but there's no smell to it. You know? So, your hifz is your assistance towards your tilawa, that it can speed up your recitation to a minute per page mark, and all that stuff. So yes, there's a balancing act between tadabbur and tafsir that you will have to do, but take hifz, especially adults who are doing it, as an assistance towards their tilawa. Right, Jazakumullah khairan, inshallah. We'll have Maghrib Salah out in the tent, followed by an iftar. Jazakallah for you to coming. Inshallah, hopefully make dua that Allah blesses him to come one more time before Ramadan ends. And inshallah, we take benefit from him, inshallah. And Allah continue to use you for his khidmah.